Hello everyone, how's it going, and welcome to this different Wild Rift tier list video. In this video, I'm going to giving you all my predictions and giving you all a head start with every single duo lane carry in Wild Rift patch 4.2, which releases on the 25th of May. So we're under 1 week now until probably the biggest champion release and the biggest patch release for Wild Rift in quite some time, especially for the duo lane carries down in the bot lane. On screen now, you can see that I have this is my prediction for the tier list for the new patch. I will go over every single champion for you. I will give you all the build that I think is going to be used. I'll give you all my insight with the champions, and then obviously make sure that you all know everything you need to know about the new items before the patch comes out. But before we jump into this, just to let you quickly know, I am running a giveaway at the moment over on Twitter and also on YouTube. I will leave the links down in the description, and also on Twitter as well. You've probably seen it a little bit on YouTube as well. I've done a few YouTube posts, but especially on Twitter, I did a full thread of every single champion in Wild Rift and what their build, or what I think their build, is going to be in patch 4.2. We're going to go through all of this as we go through the video today, but I'll leave that in the link down in the description if you want to give it a read. Again, if you have any questions or anything, please do let me know down in the comments. I always read the comments, and I always make sure that I reply to everyone. If they think that maybe an item might be different or a champion, everything might be different, that's all to be said obviously down in the comments. Again, this is all subject to change as well. Obviously patch 4.2 has not been released yet, the tests have not happened yet. These are all the changes that I've been seeing on the public beta environment over in China. Right, let's start off this tier list with the S plus tier champions. Some of them have stayed the same, even if the champions has changed ever so slightly. The first champion I do want to talk about though is Corki. Corki is gonna get some pretty insane buffs in terms of items. Manamune now working on abilities is huge for Corki, and it's absolutely massive. It means that his rockets, his first ability, and everything else is going to be dealing so much more damage now with Corki. But at the same time, you're probably going to be using a lot of mana as well, so you need to keep that in mind. You need to keep wary of your mana. But I think Manamune getting changed now, or getting buffed to now work on abilities, is going to open a lot more builds and a lot more champions up, which I think is going to be very, very exciting. In terms of my build with Corki, this is what I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Manamune as the first item. Now 100% of the time you're going to go for Manamune first item. I think after Manamune it can be very, very different. You can go for the Manamune Trinity Force build, which will still be strong with the likes of Riftmaker, Twin Guard. You can go for the more tankier build, or you can go for this sort of crit build that I think is going to be very, very good. The new Essence Reaver is going to be very good because it allows your abilities and your auto attacks to do more damage, which again can work with your abilities with Corki. You can just keep spamming out your rockets, which are going to deal more damage from Manamune and also deal more damage with Essence Reaver. So I think they're both going to be great. The only problem with going Essence Reaver as a second item is that this item scales with critical strike chance, so it's not going to be the best the second item. But I think as you scale and as you buy Solari Charge Blade, which is still going to be very good, and Infinity Edge, and maybe even Navori Quick Blades as the final item, that is also going to be very good. You can see here I put Navori Quick Blades or Riftmaker. I think Riftmaker might be used as a last item. Maybe you just go for like 75% crit rate. We'll have to see again. We'll have to test it out. And there are some other options as well for a final item with Corki. You know, Navori Quick Blades is one of them, so you can use your abilities more often and make full use of the Manamune Essence Reaver combo of spamming your abilities. But you can also go for like the new Immortal Shield Bow if you feel like you need a few defensive stats. Vayne is going to be again pretty insane this patch with some of the new items. We're going to scroll all the way down to Vayne. This is a build that I think is going to be probably the best bet with Vayne. I'm not too sure if it's going to be Blade Rune King or Immortal Shield Bow as the first item. You might actually see Vayne go into a more crit build now. At the moment with Vayne, it's very on hit central. Blade Rune King, Wit's End, Phantom Dancer, items like this. But with the new Immortal Shield Bow, the new Phantom Dancer, there's a lot of better crit items now for Vayne. Immortal Shield Bow, I think, is actually going to be better than Blades of the Ruin King. I think Immortal Shield Bow is just going to be an insane item overall. But I kept Blades of the Ruin King in there because it still helps Vayne a lot in the 1v1s. Phantom Dancer, the new Phantom Dancer, is absolutely insane. It's definitely going to be a must build on Vayne to basically give her free movement speed and also attack speed. Nash's Tooth with scales, which scales now with bonus attack damage, will give you more on hit damage based on how much bonus attack damage you have, which we're going to get a lot from Immortal Shield Bow or Blade of Ruin King, and also Phantom Dancer. And obviously Nash Tooth are going to give us a lot of attack speed. Bloodthirster for more physical vamp. I think the combo of Bloodthirster plus Immortal Shield Bow is going to be very interesting. And your last item kind of depends on what you went for. So if you went for the crit build, you can go for Infinity Edge as a final item to get 100% crit chance, or you can go for item like Guardian Angel if you just want to play defensive, if you went for like the on hit build with Blade of Ruin King, Phantom Dancer, etc. But again, Vayne, I think, is going to be very, very strong. I think, especially paired with the likes of, you know, Lulu, Karma, Nami, unless all them champions got nerfed, I think, you know, Vayne and I think hyper carries in general are going to be very, very strong in this patch because of the new Phantom Dancer and other items like that. But yeah, Vayne, still very good. Her early game is obviously still going to be weak, but she's going to scale into an absolute beast when it comes into the mid and late game. And with how much survivability you have now from Immortal Shield Bow, it's going to help Vayne a lot. Now, obviously, Kai'Sa, a lot of people have asked about my opinions about Kai'Sa, with what I think about the passive, because I haven't actually spoken about the Kai'Sa passive changes yet in a video. I think Kai'Sa passive changes are going to be pretty exciting. The only negative side of the passive skill change now with Kai'Sa, if you don't know what the passive skill change is, basically with Kai'Sa now, you don't need a certain amount of AD to get your first ability evolved, you don't need a certain amount of attack speed to get your third ability evolved, and you don't need a certain number of ability power to get your second ability evolved. Kai'Sa's passive now works with how many tier 3 items you complete. So like Shield Bow, Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge, anything like that. So if you complete one full item, you get to choose which evolve you want to go for. So say, for example, you complete Immortal Shield Bow, you can get your first ability upgrade. You go for your second item, which is probably going to be Phantom Dancer. When that item is finished, you then get your third ability upgraded. It doesn't matter what stats you have on any of these items, it's going to get you an evolved ability. Any tier 3 item at all, which might make AP Kai'Sa actually very, very strong, because you can go for a cheap item like Manamune and go into full AP, and you can still get your third ability evolved, your first ability evolved, and also your second ability. But also this helps the mid and late game of AD Kai'Sa a lot. Now, like I said, the only downside of this is that your first ability evolve is going to happen a lot later into the game now, because the Immortal Shield Bow is a lot more expensive than the double BS Sword Rush from before. So Kai'Sa's early game is not going to be that strong. If you can get Immortal Shield Bow, if you can get your first item before that first objective, that first dragon, then great, you're in a perfect spot. But it's going to be, I would say kind of 50-50 whether you're going to actually complete the first item or not before the first objective. You need to make sure that you pretty much CS perfectly, and you make sure that you are not behind at all in terms of levels or CS or last hit minions or anything like that. You need to pretty much play the early game perfect to be able to get your first ability evolved before that first objective. But as I mentioned, as it gets into the mid and late game, that's where Kai'Sa is going to be strong. You're going to get your second ability evolved for free now. Your third ability evolve is going to be a lot cheaper, and it means you can complete and fully complete items rather than going for double BS Sword into Storm Razor, into Hurricane, into Infinity Edge, you know, that sort of weird build. So with that in mind, I think the go-to build now for Kai'Sa, I think you're still going to go Immortal Shield Bow as the first item. I think it's the best first item for Kai'Sa. That just gives her a lot of great stats. Phantom Dancer, I think, is going to be absolutely incredible on most hyper carries, and is probably going to be a second item. And then you go for Infinity Edge. So once you complete these 3 items, Shield Bow, Phantom Dancer, and Infinity Edge, you get all 3 of your abilities evolved. First ability, second ability, and third ability. At 3 items, Kai'Sa, I think, is going to be the best AD carry in the entire game. It's just getting to that point, which might be a little bit difficult. Like I said, if you don't get your first ability evolved before the first dragon, then you might be very, very weak at that first dragon. So you might have to give it up. But Lord Dominic's Regards or Mortal Reminder, depending on the situation of the game. If you need any anti-heal, then Mortal Reminder is good. If you don't, then just go Lord Dominic's Regards. That means you get 100% crit chance with all these items. And your final item depends on whether you get Lord Dominic's Regards or Mortal Reminder. If you get Lord Dominic's, you can just go Guardian Angel. You can also go Nash's Tooth if you want to play super hyper carry, and if you don't want a defensive item at all. Or you can go for Bloodthirster if you go for Mortal Reminder just as your final crit item. But yeah, I think Kai'Sa at 3 items is going to be absolutely insane. I think she's going to be a great carry. Like I said, it's just that one item power spike, which might make Kai'Sa a little bit weaker, but I still think she's worthy of staying in the S+ tier because she's going to be insanely strong in this patch. Tristana as well, again, still going to be very, very strong in this patch with her scaling, with her range, with the new items as well. Tristana is still going to scale and be one of the best hyper carries in the game because of her increased range she gets from her passive, her insane damage output, her resets with her jumps. Absolutely insane. The build is very, very similar as well to Kai'Sa. I think this is going to be your standard build now for AD carries. Immortal Shieldbow, Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge, percentage armor penetration item, and then the flexible last item. That's going to be your standard build. Again, a lot of testing needs to be done to see if Phantom Dancer is worth going as a second item or a third item, but I think Phantom Dancer is pretty insane because of the basically the free attack speed you get when you auto attack anything now, and the free movement speed as well at the same time. But yeah, Mortal Shieldbow, Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge, percentage armor pen item, and then your last item can be flexible, Guardian Angel, Bloodthirster, anything like that. Again, Tristana, absolutely great AD carry that you should definitely play and pick up if you haven't done already. And then Ezreal, still a super safe AD carry to play. Not really much has changed with Ezreal. The only thing is like Manamune will increase your ability damage on like your second ability, your third ability, and also your ultimate. Your first ability worked as an auto attack anyway, so I don't think Manamune will give Ezreal the ability damage, which actually is more, by the way, the Manamune damage that you get from, you know, abilities compared to auto attacks. You get more damage from abilities than what you do with auto attacks. So with Ezreal, I think his first ability counting as a auto attack, I think will count it towards an auto attack instead of going for the more damage from using the abilities. But still, Ezreal is going to be great. You know, Manamune is still going to be great with him. Give him a little bit more damage, not too much extra damage, but still a super safe AD carry to play. Very, very strong AD carry. The only boring thing with Ezreal is that his build hasn't changed at all. Manamune, Trinity Force, Riftmaker, Serrated Grudge, Blade Rune King, or Guardian Angel. Nothing's changed with Ezreal at all in this patch. Crit Ezreal is not going to be a thing. Don't build Essence Reaver on Ezreal. It won't work at all because it doesn't have the Sheen passive. Don't think it's going to be great at all. Crit Ezreal probably won't become a thing. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. To be fair with Ezreal, because like I said, Ezreal is kind of a boring one, to be honest with you. I mean, another thing with Kai'Sa as well, before I move into the S tier, is that you, like I said, you could play AP Kai'Sa now with the Manamune rush. Because Manamune is super cheap, so you can go Manamune, which gets your first ability evolved, and then go into like full AP with Nash's Tooth, and then that gives you your second ability easily evolved. Your third ability obviously will be evolved, and you can deal a lot of damage. You don't have to focus now on building extra AD or extra attack speed items to get your abilities evolved. You can just go and rush as much ability power as possible. Death Cap, Void Staff, Infinity Orb, items like that. Riftmaker is also going to be great with AP Kai'Sa. Other than that, all the builds are going to be pretty much the same with like Ezreal and Vayne, etc. Yeah, that's pretty much S tier done. In S tier, Varus has got a pretty insane buff with Manamune, as I mentioned before, with it now working with abilities. Manamune Varus is probably going to be back, even though I just did a video recently with like how strong Yomu's Ghost Blade, Edge and Knight, this kind of flex, this kind of hybrid build in a way with Riftmaker and also Conqueror. I think it's just going to go back to Poke Varus. I think Manamune now working with abilities is just going to make Poke Varus insanely strong and super annoying to deal with. You can just spam your abilities, deal a ton of damage, stay in the back line, and you're probably going to do as much damage as AP Varus now because of the way Manamune works with abilities. So yeah, Manamune, Ghost Blade, Serrated Grudge, Edge of Night, Serpent's Fang. Pretty simple build. Again, there's a little bit of flexibility in there. You can go for like Guardian Angel at some point if you don't want to go for Serpent's Fang as the last item. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be your standard build now for Varus. You can maybe still go for AP Varus. I'm very curious if maybe on-hit Varus becomes a thing, because with how strong Nash's Tooth is now, with it now scaling with AD. So maybe you can go for like Immortal Shieldbow, Nash's Tooth, Phantom Dancer with the extra attack speed as well. Maybe, but I don't think so. I think, you know, Edge of Night is still needed in the game. But saying that, you get a lot of attack speed from Phantom Dancer. So that might also be a thing where you go for like on hit / crit Varus. Again, a lot of testing needs to be done. This is going to be a standard build for Varus. Anyway, Lucian has dropped down into S tier. I don't think Lucian, I think Lucian lost a lot in terms of damage and in terms of, I guess you could say kill pressure in a way, because Lucian is not a champion that wants to go for Immortal Shieldbow. Lucian is not an Immortal Shieldbow champion. Lucian is more of a champion that wants a lot of burst damage, a lot of attack damage, a lot of damage that helps his abilities and also his auto attacks. Shieldbow doesn't really do that. Shieldbow is more for survivability for champions like Vayne, Kai'Sa, Tristana, Xayah, Jinx, Zeri, these hyper carries that want to scale into the late game and have that bit of survivability in the early game, which Lucian doesn't really need, which is why Lucian's build is slightly different to what we're used to seeing with Lucian. I don't think Storm Razor is going to be the first item choice anymore for Lucian. I think it's actually going to be Essence Reaver. Now, the reason why I think it's going to be Essence Reaver is that Essence Reaver now enhances your ability damage and also your auto attack damage. But also the important thing with Essence Reaver now, if you read the description carefully, is that Essence Reaver now reduces the cooldown of its passive every single time you auto attack. Now, every single time you auto attack with Lucian, you can use your double up passive, which will work as 2 auto attacks. So every single time you auto attack, it reduces the passive cooldown by 1 second. So you can keep using your abilities, you can keep spamming your abilities, and every single time you auto attack with double up, you're going to reduce that abilities, that passive's cooldown by 2 seconds. Now, if I remember, it's on like a 6-second cooldown. So basically, every 3 to 4 seconds, your ability or your next auto attack is going to deal more damage, and it's also going to scale with crit, which I think is going to be great with Lucian. Again, not the best first item. I think it's kind of difficult because you don't want to go for Immortal Shieldbow with Lucian unless the item is just completely broken. You just go for it anyway. Storm Razor I don't think is going to be that good anymore, and like I said, maybe it's going to be Essence Reaver, but again, testing will have to be done. So yeah, Essence Reaver, Solari Charge Blade is still going to be very strong with Infinity Edge, Lord Dominic's Regards, or Serratus Grudge. Again, depending if you want to go for Serratus Grudge for the slow, you can also go Mortal Reminder if you need the anti-heal, or you can just go Lord Dominic's Regards for the extra crit. And then you can go for items like Guardian Angel or even Immortal Shieldbow as a last item. I think Immortal Shieldbow as a defensive item for Lucian, as like a last item, can be pretty good, but I don't think it's good enough for the early game because, again, Lucian just wants as much damage output as possible. That's why we go for items like Essence Reaver, Solari Charge Blade, Infinity Edge. These 3 items, 75% crit chance, which will increase the damage of the Essence Reaver passive. I think it's going to be great. Again, I don't know how Navori Quick Blades fit in this build now. I really don't know how Navori Quick Blades fits in this build, because I don't know what item you would really replace unless you go Immortal Shieldbow last item and then you go for Serratus Grudge as your tank item, but then you're losing out on Lord Dominic's Regards. Well, not just your tank item, your anti-tank item, your percent armor pen item. Again, a lot of question marks, a lot of things still need to be changed here for Lucian, but Manamune Lucian can also still be very, very good. You can still go for that on-hit Lucian Manamune build. Manamune, Black Cleaver, Blades of the Ruined King, with Manamune now working on abilities, can actually be pretty good for Lucian. I think it actually might be good as a solo lane build, or even in the mid lane as well, you know, top lane or mid lane build. I think both of them for the Manamune Lucian build could be pretty good. Jhin is an interesting one, because I don't think Collector is going to be that great, but I think it might be good on some champions. And I say some champions because I think Jhin is probably the only one that can really use Collector. As I said here, the Collector stats are not great and it still needs to be tested, so I might just skip the item and build Shieldbow last item, which Shieldbow is obviously not the best item, but it's just more of a defensive item for Jhin. I still think you're going to run Electrocute with Jhin. Still think you're going to go Ghostblade as the first item. Then you could go Collector as your second item, into Lord Dominic's Regards, into Infinity Edge, and then into Rapid Fire Cannon. So Collector, Lord Dominic's Regards, Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon gives you 100% crit chance. And you have Ghostblade for that early game power spike. Which, I don't know, like Jin's going to have a pretty big spike when he completes Ghostblade because it's so much cheaper than Immortal Shieldbow, for example. But then Jin's going to really struggle to 1v1 other AD carries that have Immortal Shieldbow, because Jin's all about high burst damage. You can't really burst damage a champion that's going to have like a 400 shield, a 300, 400 shield in the early game, and also have a ton of physical vamp. So I think it's actually going to be quite difficult for Jhin. But I still think Jhin could be performed very, very well. And I think you get a huge early game advantage now with the Jhin, especially, like I said, with the one item pass wipe with Ghost Blade. Interesting to see how Collector's going to work. But again, Lord Dominic's Regards, Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon means that Jhin will scale pretty well into the mid and the late game. Xayah, kind of standard. I think it's going to be a pretty decent S tier champion. Xayah does pretty well with some of the new items like Immortal Shield Bow, Phantom Dancer. Again, this is going to be your standard build for most of these AD carries. So Xayah just sitting with the standard build at the moment. Again, I don't think you'll be able to fit items like Navori Quick Blades or anything like that in for Xayah. But I think Xayah with the extra attack speed now that you can get from Shield Bow plus Phantom Dancer will definitely benefit her a lot. And I think that she'll benefit a lot from the extra attack speed that you get from some of these items. Jinx, again, another great hyper carry, which again is probably going to go for the same standard build. I don't know if you'll be able to fit Hurricane in this build anymore. I think Joe is just going for raw damage output on just one target. Trying to get your resets off is probably going to be the most important thing. So you go for like Shield Bow for survivability, Phantom Dancer for the insane amount of attack speed, Infinity Edge, Lord Dominic's Regards. That's your 100% crit chance right there. What item do you even replace now for Hurricane? I don't think you replace anything for Hurricane. The only way you can play Hurricane is if you go for Mortal Reminder, you skip the crit chance percent armor pen item, and then you can maybe go for Hurricane as the last item. But I think that's just overkill on attack speed, because you have to remember you're also running Lethal Tempo, you're also running Phantom Dancer, which is going to give you an extra 30% attack speed pretty much most of the time when you attack with Jinx. So I think getting more AD and more survivability with Bloodthirster, I think is going to be more important than going for, you know, the likes of Hurricane as the last item. But I think Jinx is going to be pretty decent. I think, again, as a hyper carry, I think hyper carry is going to be very strong in this meta. And yeah, I think this is going to be pretty much your standard build for Jinx, which again, like I said, is pretty much the standard build for most champions. Zeri is like slightly different in terms of builds. Immortal Shield Bow, Infinity Edge. I think you're gonna go Slurry, Charge Blade, or Phantom Dancer, depending on how strong Phantom Dancer is. I think Infinity Edge as the second item is probably better because you don't need that much attack speed with Zeri. You know, Zeri's more to do with the attack damage and trying to do a lot of damage with your auto attacks because you still have lethal tempo. Immortal Shield Bows is a perfect first item for Zeri because she doesn't have the most attack range, so she can get a lot of healing and a lot of physical vamp healing from her bullets from Immortal Shield Bow. Infinity Edge for the insane amount of damage. Again, Solari, Charge Blade, or Phantom Dancer, one of these attack speed items is going to be great. Then any percentage armor pen item, I think your last item kind of depends on that. You know, Guardian Angel or Bloodthirster, both of them are going to be absolutely great. But again, Zeri, I think is going to be pretty decent. I think she's going to be really strong with Immortal Shield Bow. It's going to give her a lot more survivability, especially in team fights. And again, another hyperscale AD carry that you can look to scale into the mid and late game. Now, Samira and Draven have dropped into the A tier. I think they're very high A tier. I think it's difficult to put Draven and Samira in the A tier. And there's a few reasons why. Both these champions are super difficult to play. They're super difficult to master. And not only that, they've kind of lost the potential to try and 1v1 AD carries, especially Draven. Draven, obviously, Draven and Samira both got really good first items now. Immortal Shield Bow, they're great. The problem is, most of the other AD carries are also going to go Immortal Shield Bow. So that Draven that you want to get an early game advantage with, you want to try and get kills in the early game, good luck with that against Immortal Shield Bow, because everyone else is going to have a stupid amount of shielding with the AD carries. They're going to have a lot of physical vamp as well, and they're just going to be able to survive a lot more against Draven. Kind of same with Samira as well. Obviously, Samira's a bit more of a scaling champion than Draven. But again, a very difficult champion to play, a very difficult champion to master. And I'm not too sure if these two champions are going to be S tier worthy. If you're good at the champions, then yeah, go for it. You know, they'll be S tier if you can play the champions. But again, they're very difficult to play. I don't think they're going to be too great. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Again, this is all subject to change. We'll have to see how it goes. Draven, I don't think you go for Collector. Again, I think there's a situation with Draven where you cannot skip any other item. Immortal Shield Bow, way too strong. Infinity Edge, way too strong. Lord Dominic's Regards, if you want to go for the crit item, way too strong. Or you can go for Mortal Reminder. But even if you go for a Mortal Reminder, you got Solari Charge Blade in there to give you the extra attack speed and also the extra damage, because you're going to be using your abilities a lot. Your second ability resets. Your first ability you're going to be constantly using as well. So you're going to be getting a lot more crit damage from Solari Charge Blade plus the attack speed, which is going to be important. And then your last item, again, I don't think you're going to go for Collector as the last item. Collector is more of a early game item that you want to try and snowball with. But you can't replace Collector. You can't delay Infinity Edge for a Collector. I just don't think the item is that strong enough to delay Collector enough to not go for Infinity Edge or even Lord Dominic's Regards. So the last item, you just go for like Guardian Angel if you've got 100% crit, or you just go for Bloodthirst as the final item, because the physical vamp from Bloodthirst, also a multiple shield bow, probably is going to be very, very strong. But again, all subject to change. I think Draven is still going to be in a pretty decent spot. Again, I think the difficulty now is that Draven's going to be against champions with more shield bow, so you're maybe not going to get as much advantage. But again, it's going to give Draven himself a lot more survivability, which is going to be quite nice. But again, very, very difficult champion to play. Same with Samira as well. I think Samira is, again, another champion that might not use Collector because of how strong the Immortal Shield Bow plus Infinity Edge combo is going to be. Then you go for Lord Dominic's Regards. Again, that's your 75% crit chance with the % armor pen item. And then your final item, again, you're probably going to be too late in the game where Collector's going to be even worth it. Again, Collector is more of a second item like you saw on Jhin. I don't think it's going to be used on Samira as a second item. Again, I might be proven wrong. The Collector might be a really, really strong item, or maybe they change some of the stats and buff it up a little bit. But again, I don't think it's going to be too strong. So yeah, Mortal Shield Bow, Infinity Edge, Lord Dominic's Regards, Bloodthirster, and then your final item, because you have 100% crit chance already, is going to be Black Cleaver or Guardian Angel. If you do go for Mortal Reminder, then your last crit item can maybe be something like Phantom Dancer or something like that to give you a little bit of extra attack speed, or maybe some other defensive item. I'm not too sure. Maybe Twin Guard last item or something like that. I can't really think of another crit item that could be good as a last item here for Samira. But yeah, your early game with Immortal Shield Bow, Infinity Edge plus Lord Dominic's Regards, these three items are going to be way too strong to even skip or delay any of them for Collector. So that's why I don't have Collector in my Samira builds. Ashe, I think, is going to be kind of standard. I don't think there's anything great. Oh, wait, I completely forgot about Caitlyn. Caitlyn is one of the... I've completely forgot about Caitlyn. Caitlyn is one of the only champions that is actually not going to use Immortal Shield Bow. Caitlyn is one of them champions that doesn't need survivability. It doesn't need this crazy amount of physical vamp. Caitlyn needs damage. And interestingly enough, Stormrazor, if the stats are going to stay the same for Immortal Shield Bow, Stormrazor is actually going to give you more damage than what Shield Bow is going to give you. Because again, Shield Bow is more for survivability, more for these hyper carries. But Caitlyn wants to abuse her range in the early game, and she wants to deal as much damage as possible. That's why we go for Stormrazor as the first item, to help with the slow, to help with the extra magic damage. And then we can go for items like Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge, Lord Dominic's Regards, and just scale that crit a lot. Again, Phantom Dancer might be pretty good for Caitlyn because you could just stand back, you could just keep auto attacking the whole fight and getting that free 30% attack speed. That on top of Infinity Edge, Lord Dominic's Regards, I think it's going to be very, very strong. But again, your final item being Guardian Angel or Bloodthirster. But yeah, I think it's going to be quite interesting. Again, I don't think you're going to go Immortal Shield Bow on Caitlyn unless, again, the item is completely broken. You just build it anyway. You know, that could only be the other case. Sorry, I forgot about Caitlyn. Who am I up to now? So I'm up to Ashe. Ashe has like two different types of builds. You have the crit build, which I think is going to be interesting. It's so funny because everyone's like, don't recommend Infinity Edge on Ashe. It doesn't work. I think what people don't realize is that you still get extra damage based on how much crit you actually build with Ashe. Even if her crits don't allow you to do extra damage, it just applies a slow. But the thing is that when you apply the slow and then you auto attack on top of that, or you auto attack on top of the champions that already have the Frostbite, the passive already on them, you're going to deal more damage based on how much crit chance you have. So yeah, doesn't really make sense to me. And also Infinity Edge just gives you a ton of attack damage anyway. So I mean, like, for the people saying don't build Infinity Edge on Ashe, you're wrong. The item is still insanely strong and you should definitely build it on Ashe. But I think Crit Ashe might be quite interesting. Immortal Shield Bow, Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge. Again, your standard build with Ashe. I think it's going to be quite interesting, especially with the buff that happened to the first ability. Lethal Tempo. You got the survivability now from Immortal Shield Bow. You got the insane attack speed from Phantom Dancer. So I think it could be actually pretty interesting. But also her Let's Fly build, which I call it, which is one where you basically, you spam the second ability over and over again. Pretty much what got a buff as well, because Manamune got buffed. Black Kiva's still really strong. Saber's Fang, Water Reminder. You can maybe go for the Solari Charge Blade to give you a little bit of extra auto attack damage in the end, or go for Guardian Angel. I think the Let's Fly build is actually going to be pretty good. It's more of like the supportive Ashe build as well, because, you know, you got Manamune, you got insane stats from Manamune as well, which is going to be pretty cool. I think it's going to be absolutely great. So we'll have to see how Manamune works with Ashe's second ability, see if the extra damage is worth it or not. Twitch, again, not really much has changed with Twitch. I don't think AD Twitch is really that good anyway, but again, Twitch is pretty much going to go for the standard AD build. People are saying that probably AP Twitch is going to be better, especially with Nash's Tooth getting buffed, which definitely might be the case. Riftmaker is still very strong on Twitch, and maybe AP Twitch is probably going to still be the way to go. But again, with a champion like Twitch, you having Immortal Shieldbow now as your defensive item is pretty nice. You can still build Nash's Tooth if you're going for the AD build as well, if you want extra attack speed. Phantom Dancer is pretty good as well, because the extra range you get with Twitch Ultimate, and also you can just get free attack speed as well. So Twitch will be an interesting one to play. I think he might be okay. I think he might be in a pretty decent spot. And then Misfortune, you have like a couple of builds again. You have the crit build and you have the ability build. I'm not too sure how well this ability build is going to be, because I don't know how Manamune's abilities are going to work with Misfortune's abilities. Now, the thing is with the Misfortune's abilities, her third ability and also her ultimates, both of them are damage over time. Well, not damage over time, but they're like tick damage. So you don't get like instant damage like her first ability. Her third ability is like damage. Like it's tick damage. You just keep dealing damage every single time. I don't think Manamune is going to work with every single damage take every single time. If it does, then that's going to be broken. I don't think it does. I think it's going to be only. I think it's only going to work with the first instance of damage, which means I don't think it's going to be that good. Especially with ultimate as well. I don't think it's going to be that good. Again, Misfortune is a situation where I don't think Collector is going to be strong enough as an item. Again, we'll have to test it to make sure. If you want to go for the ability build, Manamune, Ghostblade, Serrator's Grudge, Edge of Night, Serpent's Fang, or Guardian Angel, pretty much like the Varus build if you want to go for that. Or you can go for the crit build, Mortal Shieldbow, Infinity Edge, Serrator's Grudge still as well, which means we need more crit items. So we go for Phantom Dancer or Solari Charge Blade, and then for Bloodthirster. I think Serrator's Grudge is too good of an item in Misfortune for the slows to basically guarantee your ultimate's always going to hit, to basically warrant skipping it. So that's why we go for like Phantom Dancer or Solari Charge Blade, and then we just go for another crit item as the final item. But again, no room for Collector. I don't think there is room for Collector. You need at least one attack speed item. Even if Misfortune's second ability gives her attack speed anyway, both these two items are way too strong to miss out on. And yeah, again, Misfortune be a champion, that'll be very interesting. Now, these last two champions don't really get played in Duralane, so I didn't actually make a build for them. I think Akshan might go for your standard build. I think Akshan will probably go for a Mortal Shieldbow, which I think will be pretty good. You could probably go for like a little bit of on hit as well if you want to. Like maybe, I think Phantom Dancer is also going to be very good. So I think you're probably going to go for Immortal Shieldbow, Phantom Dancer, and then kind of flexible from there on out. You can go for Nash's Tooth if you want more on hit. You can just go for more crit, like Infinity Edge, anything like that. Problem is Akshan doesn't really work in Duralane because he's more of a mid lane champion. That's why I didn't make a build for him. And Senna obviously is more of a support. But again, Senna, pretty huge buff this patch. Manamune got buffed insane, so now Manamune is going to work with Senna's abilities, which means she can just spam her first ability a lot more often. Black Cleaver is also still very good, so like support Senna in a way is still going to be very strong. But yeah, that's pretty much everything, to be fair. I don't think there's anything more that I want to go through. Again, I'll link all the giveaways and all the Twitter threads and everything in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are, patch 4.2. Again, we are very close now to patch 4.2. I will be streaming. I will be making a lot of content around every single AD carry for patch 4.2. So if you're excited, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you leave a like. And as always, comment down below what your thoughts are on this video. Stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.